Well, we are full swing into Christmas season. If you haven't noticed, you probably have, because there's only 16 days left until Christmas. And you knew it was Christmas season, though, because as soon as Halloween came, I think I seen some jack-o'-lanterns wearing Santa hats. I don't know. It just like as soon as Halloween came, it was Christmas everywhere. I was like, that's kind of... It used to be like after Thanksgiving you'd see Christmas, but now it's almost like after Valentine's Day, Christmas. I don't know. It just keeps coming at you over and over, and it gets a little bit sooner, and just when you think they can't have it anymore sooner, it is. That's just part of the commercialization of Christmas, and it's coming on. Now, if we're not intentional, we can be swept up in all the melee, the activities that we ourselves find ourselves in. It's real easy to lose your focus on Christmas, trying to celebrate Christmas. There are so many things to do, and I don't know about you and our family and all the things we do and the parties we have and the things that go on around it and productions we do. And there's just a lot of things to celebrate around Christmas here at the church, at your office, wherever you're at. It seems like everyone's having Christmas parties, gatherings, galas, events, and you could really go through and not even really focus on Jesus if you're not careful. So we have to be intentional on that. That's a large part of why we do Road to Bethlehem, is to remind others of what Christmas is really all about. The part I enjoy watching most, and I like being a tour guide because I can take the groups through it, I like watching the children's eyes as they take in a Christmas story. Some of them have never heard it before, and we get to be the ones that we have the privilege of telling the children Jesus' story with what we do. You know, the black lights and fog machines, and we have all that we're doing with it, and the costumes and the sets. But it's really just telling his story. And there are a couple of those that really stand out to me. Over the years we've done this. Now understand, we've done this about 16 years, the Road to Bethlehem. We've done this here. We've done it at Weeki Wachee for a number of years. And with Weeki Wachee being closed this year, we're doing it back here at Hillside. There's some things that have happened over the years, though, and you can go after story. But a couple that stood out to me as I was reminiscing on this is the children going through. And Ariel was playing Mary in scene 1. And Chase was our angel, of course, who is a phenomenal angel. He's a big guy. He jumps out. He just is intimidating. And he scares people. And he takes pride in scaring people. And I'm sure he scared Mary when he first appeared, and that happened that way. So he comes out, and this one year, there's a little handicapped boy, and he's standing there. He's just touching the set. You know, I don't know what, he had some type of disability, but he kept touching this set. And then Gabriel jumps out and he goes, "Ah! Ah! Ah!" And he keeps doing that. And Chase doesn't break character. He does this whole line. And the boy's just going, "Ah!" And then he disappears and he goes, "Aw." It just caught him off guard, and it overwhelmed him. And then when he left, he missed being overwhelmed. It was great. Great. Another time I was doing a tour guide, I was taking him through, and there's this little blonde-haired, cute little girl going through. And you could tell that she's never heard a Christmas story before. She's seeing it all for the first time. And you see Gabriel comes out, and she leans all the way back. And in the first scene 1, you go to scene 2, we have another angel come out, and she's like looking at it again. And we go to the end, we get to scene 4, where you have the shepherds in the field. Another angel comes out. She turns, she says, "They just keep popping out of everywhere." And I guess we don't realize how many angels were involved in a Christmas story until you start reading and looking through and going through and see there were actually a lot of angels involved in the story of his birth. That's when heaven and earth comes together and Jesus Christ is presented as God's gift of heaven to mankind. And the angels are there quite a bit. You get to see the wonder in their eyes. You get to see all that, the incarnation taking place. And so I'm asking once again for you to invite your friends, coworkers, neighbors, put up the flyers, help us advertise it so we can tell as many people as we can about our Savior's birth and why He came. We are going to look at the story in Mary's part in Christmas, chapter 1 of Luke. We're going to look at her part, so if you could turn there with me, we'll be there today. We're going to start in verse 26. Luke 1:26. If you could turn there with me. It says, now in the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent by God to a city of Galilee called Nazareth. So the Christmas story starts out in Nazareth. And it says it's the 6th month, but it doesn't mean that it's June. When some people read that and say, well, it's 6 months, January, February, March, you go, it's not June. It's not summer. It's not Midsummer's Night Dream. It's not anything like that. It's not that. There's another reason it uses 6th month, and we'll find out later in the passage what 6th month refers to. It does refer to Elizabeth being pregnant. It's her 6th month of her pregnancy. And we'll find that out. And you get the beginning of the story. Before this is when God sends the angel Gabriel to Zechariah, John the Baptist's father. He's chosen to go in the temple, and he goes in the temple, and it's his turn to light the incense. And on the inside of the holy place, not the most holy place, the holy place, there are 3 different, we call them pieces of furniture. You have, if you walk in there and you look to your left, you have the table of showbread where they have all the bread laid out. They put 12 loaves every morning. They would put out a loaf of bread for each of the 12 tribes. And then you look on the opposite side, you look over on your right side, there'd be the menorah, which would be where they'd keep the oil in, the lamp would be lit, that would be your source of light inside there. And then toward the back, toward the curtain, you had the altar of incense. All these are made out of pure gold. The altar of incense is there, and that's where they would put the incense that no one else could have. There was a special fragrance that they would mix together, and it was only for God's temple. If you got caught using that on your own, they'd kill you. It was really a serious thing. But it was mixed together. It was burnt on that, and it would go up and take the prayers of the saints up to God. And it was his turn to do that. Now, he had served, I don't know if you've ever been chosen before, because it was chosen by lots. So you could serve in the priesthood and never be chosen to do any of these things. But it says that he was chosen by lot. He goes in. It was a divine appointment God had for him. He goes in. It's finally his chance. He's putting the incense in there. He's getting ready to burn it. And next thing you know, there's a person standing right next to him. It's Gabriel. And he comes and he tells him, your prayers have been answered. Your prayer actually has been answered. Your prayer. See, he's been asking for one thing over and over and over for many, many years. And I don't know if you can relate to that. Maybe you've asked God for something for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 10 years, 20 years. Maybe you've been asking God for one thing over and over and over. And you haven't seen an answer. That's where Zechariah was. The thing he asked for was a child. That's what he wanted. See, him and his wife were married, but she was barren and had no children. And it was a source of shame in those days for a woman not to have any children. And they prayed. He's a priest. He's representing God. He's serving in that capacity. And all he asked for was just one child. Could you please give me a child? They prayed over and over and over. Now it says in this text that Elizabeth is well advanced in years. That means she's really old. It's a nice way of saying it. She's over the hill, and she's way past over the hill. She's past a childbearing age. And then Gabriel comes and tells Zechariah, your prayer has been heard. You'll have a son. And he doesn't believe it. I mean, he really doesn't. He said, well, how do I know these things are true? And Gabriel gets a little upset with him. I mean, in the text, he gets a little upset. He says, do you know who I am? You ever have an angel tell you that? It's not a good thing if the angel, some people might have told you that. Do you know who I am? But if an angel tells you, do you know who I am? That's really not good. He said, you know who I am? I am Gabriel. I stand in the presence of God. And I was sent to tell your sorry rear end about this, and you're not going to take it? Mm-hmm. If I had my way, I'd kill you, but I need you for a little bit. But he says, here's what's going to happen. You're not going to be able to tell anybody this news for 9 months. So he struck him mute. And he runs out of the temple, and he's trying to tell everyone what happened, but he can't speak. For 9 months, he can't tell anybody anything. And he's making signs, flapping his arms, and he's trying to tell everyone what happened, but he can't. And then sure enough, a little bit later, Elizabeth is found with child. Matter of fact, when Gabriel comes to Mary, Elizabeth is 6 months pregnant already. That's what it refers to in the 6th month. The angel Gabriel was sent by God to a city of Galilee named Nazareth. He's sent there after Elizabeth is 6 months pregnant. And I promise you, John didn't tell anybody. Some of you guys will get that later on because you couldn't talk. But anyway, that's how it takes off. 6 months of Elizabeth's pregnancy. And if you look at the next passage, or next verse rather, in 27, it says who he's going to. We're told in the 6th month he goes to this city, and then we told a little bit more information in the next verse. Who he approaches the city is to a virgin betrothed to a man whose name was Joseph, of the house of David, and the virgin's name is Mary. When you look at that passage carefully, it's someone who's never been with a man. It's a virgin who is betrothed. And in those days, betrothal is this. You would have an engagement, but it would be a proper engagement. You were married, but you haven't solidified the marriage yet. You think, why would they do that? Well, here's why they would do that, for a couple of reasons. One of them being this. You'd have a betrothal period, and you'd wait several months to make sure the young lady wasn't pregnant. Because it'd be real easy to cover your shame if you were pregnant and you'd find someone to marry so you wouldn't have to be exposed as being unfaithful or have been a loose woman. And they would be engaged or married, betrothal, but then you'd wait so many months to make sure that she was a virgin, that she wasn't with anyone else, because if all of a sudden she becomes pregnant during that time, you'll know that she just is marrying you to hide her shame. So there's built into the law a system that would expose that. The problem is that it didn't work so well for Mary because she winds up pregnant during that time. And she has to explain out, and we'll look at that next week with Joseph and go over that. But it's a virgin betrothed to a man whose name is Joseph. And it's important that he's of the house of David. And she's of the house of David also. And it's very, very important. We'll look at a passage here in a little bit from 2 Samuel 7 that talks about the Davidic covenant and that the Messiah has to come from David's line. It was promised to David that the Messiah would come from his own body, from his seed. And so it has to fit that. As they're waiting for the Messiah, everyone has their eyes on the line of David. And every young girl born in the house of David was hoping secretly, maybe I'll be the one chosen to bring the Messiah in through the seed. Maybe that God would choose me. Now, there will only be one woman ever chosen in all of history to fulfill that, and it would fall to Mary. So here's a virgin betrothed to a man whose name is Joseph. He's from the house of David, and we find out the virgin's name is Mary. And we don't know anything else about the arranged marriage, how that was taken care of, how the families came together and made that happen, except that Jacob is Joseph's dad. That's his name. We know that from the passages we read through. But here they are. So this angel is sent to visit Mary, and it's a fulfillment of an ancient prophecy of Isaiah. Chapter 7. If you look back at Isaiah, you go all the way to 7:14. It says, "Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and you will call his name Emmanuel." And Emmanuel simply means God with us. But this is an ancient sign given all the way back in Isaiah's day to a king who really didn't want to ask for a sign. And God said, "I'll give you a sign. I'll give mankind a sign." And here's the sign. The virgin shall conceive and bear a son. And it will be God with us, God in the flesh. That would only happen one time ever. I don't care how many women said, "I know I wasn't with anyone, I'm pregnant." No, it only happened one time ever. And it would be the Davidic covenant. And everyone would know that that is Messiah. Even before he was born, they would know the Messiah is here. Even before birth, they would understand that the Scripture is fulfilled. And Mary would be the one that's chosen to fulfill this promise, this ancient Scripture promise that would be coming to them. And if you look at verse 28 then, "And having come in, the angel said to her, 'Rejoice, highly favored one, the Lord is with you. Blessed are you among women.'" And Gabriel actually approached Daniel all those years ago and used a very, very similar passage. And he didn't call her a woman or anything, it didn't go that far, but "Rejoice, highly favored one." Boy, if God was ever going to say anything to you, here's what you want him to say. Highly favored one. That means God looked at you and gave you 2 thumbs up. It doesn't mean you're perfect. It means that you are seeking after God to the best of your ability. You're following him. It doesn't mean that you don't fall short in some areas. It means that your heart is right with God. That's what it means. And he comes, we know something about Mary, that she's highly favored. The Lord's with her. She's blessed among women because, once again, every single little girl